Hi there, my name's Diane Wittry and I'm the conductor of the Allentown Symphony Orchestra here in Pennsylvania. And we have a video of a performance with the Eroica trio where we're playing the Beethoven Triple Concerto, and it's really phenomenal. I hope you're going to stay and watch that afterwards. But I have with me the three members of the Eroica trio. Let's all say hello.
Hi!
So I wanted to go through and have each of them sort of introduce themselves and talk a little bit about their musical careers to get to know them a little bit, and then we're gonna explore some different questions about what it's like being a traveling performer. So I want to start with the pianist. Erika Nickrenz is a wonderful pianist, and she actually lives in New Jersey. And why don't you tell us a little bit about your background?
Well, it's great to see you.
Good to see you too.
Always love working with you. So actually I was born and raised in New York City in Greenwich Village, and everybody's like, what? I didn't know that children could be raised in Greenwich Village, but I'm one of those rarities. Hence I don't know how to ride a bicycle or to swim, but that's right. And then I moved to New Jersey when I married my husband, Carl, about 25 years ago. And so I have a place in New York, apartment in New York, which, you know, my crash pad, rehearsal space for the trio, and a house in New Jersey. And I started my piano lessons at 6 with Herman Diaz, who's a Claudio Arau disciple, and a little tiny music school, Greenwich House Music School on Barrow Street, and it was a great start for me. And then I went on to Juilliard Pre-College, where actually I met Sara Parkins, but that's another part of the story. And then I went on to the Juilliard School and got my bachelor's and master's. My teacher was Abby Simon, who amazingly almost made it to 100 this year. He passed away just a couple weeks before in January, and I was able to go to Geneva and almost like a reunion with the other students, and we played and celebrated his life. And so I had pretty much two main teachers. And then chamber music wise, I always loved playing chamber music. Started playing when I was, 8 or 9, chamber music. And I guess most of my influences would be Felix Gallimere and at Marlborough and Sasha Schneider, and they were actually mentors to the trio as well. But yeah, I think I've always gravitated to chamber music. I was raised as a soloist, but I really found my heart belonged playing with others.
That's great. That's wonderful.
Thank
And
you.
then we have on violin, we have Sara Parkins. And Sara is actually coming to us today from the Los Angeles area, actually from Eagle Rock, very close to where I grew up.
Was that Pasadena? Or
I grew up in Pasadena, yes. Yes.
Adjacent. Well, my story in 2 minutes. Born and raised in Detroit for a while, and then I went to New York when I was 16 and went to Juilliard Pre-College, hence what Erika mentioned. I met Erika. Before that, actually, I went to summer music camp, if you will, call it a camp, at Meadowmount, and that's where I met Sant'Ambrogio. So I think I was 14 then, and then 16 when I went to Juilliard Pre-College. And then later on, I went to Curtis, and Sara and I were roommates. And then
we were the party apartment, let me tell you.
21st and Walnut, yes. I loved the apartment. But then from there, I've kind of had a varied educational life. I feel really, it wasn't exactly linear. It was sort of, took me into different places. After Curtis, I had my first job in a quartet. It was my first sort of professional experience playing chamber music and being part of a university. That was in Tucson. And I didn't know anything about Tucson. I was either an East Coast person or a West Coast person with Detroit in the middle, And I learned a lot, and then later I went to Stony Brook, and then finally did the big New York move and lived there a long time. And now I sort of divide my time between LA and New York. We rehearse in New York, and whenever we have concerts on the West Coast, we rehearse here. So I kind of feel really grateful for my my life and my musical life. And it's been so varied.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And then on cello, we have Sara Sant'Ambrogio, and she lives in New York. And I'm so glad that we got to know each other better, because after we performed together, then we hung out a little bit in New York and everything. So tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, I come from a really, really long line of classical musicians. My father was principal cello of the St. Louis Symphony and was in the Boston Symphony when I was born in Boston. And my grandmother was a wonderful piano teacher who was actually Erika's piano teacher, which is how we first met when we were 12 years old. That's Erika and I have been playing together since we were 12 years old. So basically, like when we look at like our significant others or our kids, we're like, you guys, like sometimes Erika will speak and I understand her and her own husband doesn't understand her because I've grown up listening to the way she speaks and I can understand what she's saying. But anyway, so I started being in a music family. My mom was teaching a lot of the neighborhood kids piano when I was 2. And so I asked to start having piano lessons. So at 2, I started playing piano and it just seemed like a really normal thing to do because everybody in the house played music. And then when I was 4, I decided I really wanted the cello and I just was dying for it. I was like, I wanted a puppy, I wanted a pony, and I wanted a cello. And so I started putting it on all my birthday wish lists and all my Christmas wish lists. And, but my parents looked at me and I was this scrawny kid. And so they thought she's never going to be, my dad thought she'll never be big enough to play the cello. So he gave me a violin, which I hated. And it just was not what the sound in my head was and in my soul. So one night I shared a bedroom with my older sister, Stephanie, and I traded her the violin for a book she had that had really beautiful pictures in it. And I was learning how to read it and so I was like, I'd rather have the book. So she was really envious that I had this special instrument. And so she picked up the violin and now she's a professional violinist, teaches at University of Nevada, Reno, and was concertmaster of San Antonio Symphony. And I read a ton because I'm on tour all the time. But and so I went back to the piano, but I kept asking every Christmas, every June for my birthday, I'd say puppy, pony, cello. And cello would always be number 1. Puppy and pony kind of went up and down, you know, depending on whether I was being realistic. At 6 years old, my mom took my older sister and I to the shoe store to get shoes for school. And when we were eating dinner that night, my mom mentioned how crazy it was that my feet were so much bigger than my older sister, who's bigger than me in every way. And my dad stopped eating and he said, "Hold your hand up, Sara." And so I have a hand up, which is like, it looks like I am E.T. I mean, I have like the hugest hands, actually bigger face. And my dad said, "Oh, you're definitely going to be big enough to play the cello." And the next day I got a cello and I was psyched. And so I studied with my dad until I was 15. And then I studied cellist at 15 for 1 year because I felt like my dad wasn't taking it seriously enough. I had to beg him for lessons and we would have lessons like once every 3 weeks or something. And they would be like a 3-hour session. And then I'd like not have another lesson. So I started studying with this Russian cellist. And when I went to Meadowmount and met Sara, we met all these kids who were going to Juilliard and Curtis. And I found out that if you got into Curtis before you had your high school diploma, 2 really important things happened. One was they would bring in tutors to get you your high school diploma. And 2 was, if you got into Curtis, it was free. And I thought, because I knew that if I wanted to leave home early, my parents would never pay for me to leave home early. So I came back from Meadowmount and I was like, I'm going to Curtis. And my family was like, what? And I was like, I figured it all out. So they had nothing. I made the money to buy the plane ticket. I flew there. I figured out somebody who had a friend who was a girl who I could stay at their apartment for free. I auditioned and lo and behold, I got in to study with David Sawyer at the Curtis Institute of Music. And it was fantastic. I was there for 3 years, got my high school diploma. And then Leonard Rose, who had been my father's teacher, heard me on the radio and he called my dad and said, "I didn't realize you had a daughter who played the cello." And he was like, "Yeah." And and he invited me to come up to New York to play for him, and I did. And he invited me to come on full scholarship to Juilliard, which was fantastic. And because I was just starting to think like my whole philosophy of life always was, you're just a big fish in a small pond. And each time that I got somewhere, I would say, yeah, but this is a small pond. And so I was like, if you're ever going to stop having that mentality, you got to go to the biggest pond there is, which is New York. And so I went, and literally 3 weeks after I arrived, I won the all Juilliard competition and played Schumann Cello Concerto at Lincoln Center. And that was so exciting. And I was like, wow, maybe this thing is working. And I always played a lot of chamber music, and I had been playing with Erika since I was 12 years old. And I had a trio under management, actually, with two other wonderful players under young concert artists. But always just kept coming back to the trio. There was something that was just inexpressible about how we could get inside each other's souls and play in this unbelievably spontaneous manner, because we could just read each other's souls. And so it gave you such extraordinary freedom on stage. To me, even though I was playing a lot of solo concerts, because I had won the bronze medal at Tchaikovsky competition and I'd won a lot of competitions, there was nothing like that synergy where you become greater than the sum total of your parts that the trio had. So I always knew that I needed to have a very solid base with the trio, but also I still play a lot of solo concerts, and I love that as well. And I also do some jazz concerts, and I love that as well. Because I like, as Sara Parkins was saying, I really like the varied nature of the kind of career that we have all carved out for ourselves. Because it keeps you always fresh and always learning. You learn something when you're improvising, and then you bring it to your Beethoven. And then you learn something in Beethoven and you bring it to your, your improvising or your solo Bach. You learn something there. I mean, it's never, the week before the pandemic hit, the trio played Beethoven Triple Concerto in Boca Raton, Florida. Erika and I did an Eroica duo concert in Jacksonville the next day. I flew to New York the day after that and played the 6 Bach cello suites at Carnegie. And then the next day I flew with the trio to the Yukon in Canada, and we played a bunch of trio recitals. To me, it doesn't get better than that. I mean, oh my God, I felt like I used everything in my soul I was able to express. And it just was, it was amazing.
That's fantastic.
I miss them.
Yeah.
I miss
really
the trio. I really miss them, I miss that music making, and I miss being with them. This is the first time like we've seen each other since March 16.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, speaking of the trio, let's talk a little bit about how the Eroica trio got started, because you really were very much pioneers in the chamber music field. You were out there when the field was really kind of dominated by men. And every group out there was completely comprised of men. I mean, not even like one token woman in the groups. So tell us a little bit about how you got started as a trio.
Erika, do you want to take that one since I was just talking?
Well, we actually told you half of it already, because where we met, Sara and I met, and it's true, I did study with her grandmother for 3 summers. She was just unbelievable, Sara Sant'Ambrogio. And then the Sara's met at Meadowmount, and then Sara Parkins and I met at Juilliard Pre-College, and then we also were at Tanglewood together as fellows.
I love that.
Just coming, into each other's paths, and then finally, we were a group, and yeah, it was. We like to think about it like we didn't notice that we really there was anything about us at first, because we weren't even. We were prepubescent.
Yeah, we were.
And you weren't even thinking about it. Just let's do this.
Exactly, we were just
loved
kids.
each other's
we didn't think.
Sort of like me as a conductor, you know, as a conductor, I always, my success is because I was so oblivious to the fact that it was a problem. What problem?
Yeah.
I'm glad
And,
we
you
didn't
know,
even think about it, honestly. And
Yeah.
and when we chose our name, this is amazing too, because we're so naive and so young. We had to pick it. Oh, I forget what happened. We were thinking about different names, and then we had a concert, and we had to put something out there, and so we just said, okay, well, Eroica is pretty because it ends with A's, like our names end with A, and you know, it's a Beethoven symphony,
and it means
like,
heroic.
like a feminine name, but it's really strong, like heroic. And then lo and behold, about 3 weeks later, somebody points out that we're missing a T. Ha ha ha! Like, does anybody ever call it the Eroica Symphony of Beethoven? No.
Right.
So that was one of the first tip-offs. Like, oh, geez. So we're looked at differently. Oh no. Do we pick a bad name? I was actually thinking that at first. Like, oh, that's weird. I mean, but then no. You know what? I like the name. We all like the name, and I wouldn't trade it for anything now, honestly. But that was the first tip-off. And we came across so much flack. Oh my goodness, everywhere we went. It was really, we didn't get very much respect at all the first few years. And it wasn't until we started winning competitions and the Naumburg really put us on the map. That was a huge.
But even the Naumburg, the word came down because I like to wear strapless dresses because I need my arms to be free and I don't want any weight on my shoulders while I'm playing the cello. And the word came down, Sara cannot wear a strapless dress. And I was like, really? Would you tell a man what they can or can't wear? That's incredible. So I had to actually go to a seamstress and have them put these little tiny straps around onto my strapless gown so that I wouldn't be strapless.
Oh, brother. Yeah.
It was ridiculous.
Wow.
And then you amazing. Also, and they would, reviews would be like, we played in San Francisco, and the San Francisco Chronicle said something like, well, after you get over the first impression that 3 Miss America pageant contestants took a wrong turn, then you realize that this country has not produced a chamber music organization with this much passion in decades. They always had to start it with something about what we looked like or something about the fact that we were women. And it was also shocking because not only were we women, but we were literally like 20 years younger than most string quartets or trios when they get together. Like when the Guarneri Quartet formed, David Sawyer, the cellist, was 41 years old. We were out on the stage in our teens.
Yeah.
So that made a big difference too, because there was ageism and there was sexism going on. And as you know, Diane, you and I talked about it when the Wall Street Journal, at this point now, we'd pretty much totally established our bona fides. We had we were playing everywhere. Carnegie Hall had chosen us as the ambassadors for America to go and play in all the great halls of the world. And we had, our CDs were in the top 10 of Billboard every week. And the Wall Street Journal writes this whole article saying, on musical merits alone, as witnessed by their sold out Carnegie Hall concert and their, top 10 Billboard charting CDs, the Eroica Trio has earned their place on the top of the ladder of chamber music, which is all the more surprising given how much time they must have to spend toning their lithe bodies and getting the perfect hairlines. And I was like, when the reporter asked me where I got my hair cut, and I was like, what?
Yeah.
What? and I was like, super cuts. Like, oh my God. And she was like, what's your gym routine? And I said, walking my dog in the park. Like, I was like, what are you talking about? But, it was interesting because we got to the point where also then the next question always was, what are you going to do about children? And so I started saying, oh, by the way, have you ever interviewed Yo-Yo? And they'd be like, yeah. And I'm like, how many kids does he have? And they go, what? I'm like, how many kids does he have? And they were like, I don't know. And I was like, so when you can answer that question, I'll answer your question.
Mm-hmm. Good for you.
Good for you. Yeah, so tell me a little bit about what was life like on the road for you guys as a trio.
Oh boy, it's interesting. My husband and I were talking about where we want to go when everything lifts, and we can travel again if we wanted to go on a vacation. And I was thinking about, honestly, this is going to sound maybe, I don't know, something over the top, but I had a hard time thinking of where I haven't been.
Yeah.
Because we have been so fortunate. We all love to travel. We're just travelaholics. And all over Asia, all over South America, of course, all over Europe, not of course, but all over Europe. Would I have gone to Vietnam?
Beirut.
Probably
Yeah.
not. All over the Middle East, Yemen? Probably not.
Yeah.
How about up the Amazon and play a Manaus in that incredible opera theater? Probably not. And Australia, New Zealand, every single state in America.
Every single state.
Finally played. Alaska was the last one, right? Yeah.
Yep.
And
so
it's like being in a place where you're not a tourist, where you're actually part of the community. That's very special.
Yes, and also the people who are interacting with you when you're there, they live there and they're so proud of it. So they want to show you the best of their city, of their country. And so you really get not a tourist's view of it. You get a real view of what it's like to live there,
And restaurants.
That's great. That's great. And when you're on the road so much, I'm sure there have been things that have happened that either are funny or travel stories of things not arriving in time. Do you want to share any of those stories?
Oh boy, we have our stories. One of the funniest, I think, is when we were doing about a 6-week-long tour in America, and part of it was in the Dakotas, in North Dakota, and it was freezing. It was so cold.
It was 75 below. It was 75 below.
It was so cold that they had like a banana that they put outside and it froze and they used it as a hammer, right? So here we are, we're driving around and we've parked the car and we rented a car and it didn't start in the morning. And we had no idea why. It turns out there's something called winter plugins, which we didn't know what that was when we rented the car. And that's what keeps the battery warm, right? It's a battery. It keeps the battery warm, so it starts. So
yeah, because we were like, as we were pulling, we landed in I think Sioux Falls or I think in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and we picked up the car. And as we're driving to the hotel, Erika's reading in the AAA book about our hotel, and she says, "Oh, it's got a gym, it's got a restaurant that'll be open when we get there, yay!" And she goes, "And it has winter plugins," and we're like, "What are winter plugins?" And then we get to the parking lot and there's all these little machines and we don't know what they are. We're looking to see if we should put money in it or something, like for a parking.
Like parking.
Yeah. And then the next morning we discover, oh my gosh.
And that was the same tour where the doorknob on your motel room froze and you couldn't get into your motel room. And that was the same tour where we won't name the management, but
yes.
Our manager, and this is in the early days, so they would print out, the papers of the tour, as we get a packet of papers of where we're supposed to play. And there's one page per place. And it was a lot of pages, right? So we get to the motel in Ohio or something.
West Virginia.
It was here.
West Virginia.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And so we were concerned because we checked in. They said, "Oh, you're not checking in until tomorrow." Oh, really? Oh, weird. Some mistake. So we ended up being there 2 nights, and then we find out that there was a complete page missing from our itinerary, and we didn't make it to Marietta, Ohio, or something like that.
Yeah,
it's horrible because it was a blizzard, and all of these elderly people, frankly, had gone to this, in the snow and the ice, and waited for us. We never came. It was just devastating. Yeah. It's not so much a funny story, but it's kind of funny. So now, of course, it would never happen, but with these paper itineraries.
Yeah. and nobody had cell phones then either. So there was no way to reach us. And since it was on a weekend, the presenter couldn't reach our management. But that was funny because we check in, I go into my room and then I'm unpacking and then I realize I forgot my book in the car and I want to go get it. And I can't open the door. And so I called the front desk and I said, "I think something's wrong with my door. Can you send maintenance out? Because I can't open it." And they said, "What room are you in?" I said, "The room." And they go, "Oh yeah, that door freezes at night."
Like every night.
Yeah. And I was like, so what do I do? And she said, well, when the sun rises, it'll melt and then you can get out. And I was like, but wait, what happens if there's a fire? And she's like, well, then it'll melt. I was like, I love this. This is such great shit. Like, you can't buy this stuff, you know? Like, it's just...
But even the last experience we had where we were all wearing red gowns, and I had a quick turnaround, so I actually kept my red dress in my suitcase because I was leaving the next day. I'm in the dressing room, opening it up, and it turns out a whole bunch of like baby oil got on my dress. And I
right in the butt and the crotch.
I was like, okay, what do we do? We got to problem solve right now. A presenter gave me a black scarf and I put it on like like on my waist. And we just like those kind of improvising things make performing exciting.
It certainly does. That's fantastic.
That's showbiz, yeah.
That's showbiz. Yeah. So, life on the road is always full of funny things happening. But, not everybody out there is ready to go on the road yet. And I know there are a lot of young, aspiring performers that are either, working as soloists, working as chamber musicians. What types of words of advice might you have for, say, a young chamber group that's really thinking of wanting to have the career that you guys have had and are continuing to have?
Yeah, that's a good question and takes a lot of thought because we're living in such a different age now. And I mean, and specifically now, the COVID age where everything is going to, for a while, be digital. And the word that comes to mind, I think, when wanting to express something to young performers is the word curiosity. I feel like curiosity is so important to keep in your emotional world because curiosity can make you think about other ways to perform besides on the big concert stage. Like I would say for a young performer, be open to all kinds of venues performing and connecting with people, whether it's schools, which we as a trio love doing these educational programs because connecting to kids is really feels so good. And the elderly centers, jails, being really open to what performing looks like. And I must say, including, I was thinking what I could do. I miss performing so much. You know what? I could have a little performance on my balcony and perform for all my neighbors. In fact, a friend of mine has this new series called Fiddler on the Lawn. And that's clever, So I would say for a young performer, being open to now new things of how to express yourself, being open to what Sara mentioned about whether it's jazz or classical or conducting or anything in the music world, really opens your world and makes you sort of curious about how to express yourself and give to others.
That's really good advice. Yeah.
I think also, though, one of the things, especially as an artist of any sort of genre, whether it's dance or music or painting or writing, because you are creating this with your soul, you have to learn to be your greatest cheerleader and your harshest critic simultaneously. But you can never, so like when we're finishing performing, as we're bowing, we're literally critiquing that night's performance as we're bowing. We're like, oh, in the recapitulation, we hesitated a little too long. Next time, let's try to forge into it, blah, blah, blah. And we're getting that stuff done. And then when we finish, I'm done. I know I did the best I could that night. And I'm going to go to sleep. And I'm not going to allow it to excoriate me and make me not be sleepless and feel bad about myself. I did the best that I could that day. Tomorrow, I'm going to try to do it better. And that's what's so incredible about the arts is that it's one of those fields where every single day you can get better if you have discipline. And you will. And it's so exhilarating to say, wow, I'm better than yesterday. Like, how many fields can you see that like clear progress on a daily basis? So, I mean, that's extraordinary. But I also think that I always say when people say, how did you guys break the glass ceiling? We say, you know, look, everything is a double-edged sword. Everything bad also has a silver lining. And so having so much resistance toward us for such an incredibly frivolous and ridiculous reason as to do with our gender, forged a real bond with us. And we realized every single note we played was of unbelievable importance, and that we could never slip. We could never think, well, it's just, you know, a concert in Iowa. No, every concert, we gave it 200%. We killed ourselves to make sure it was the absolute best we could. But we also said, this is what's special about us, and we're going to really protect it and nourish it.
Yeah.
And that's how you find a way to make your niche in the world. Don't try to follow someone else's path. Find your unique path, because you are unique.
And I think now we can do that. There are just so many more opportunities for young people in expressing. All people, exactly, including what we're doing now, having a Zoom interview. And yeah, go on, Erika.
No, I totally get what you're saying about making your own niche, and I think that we did, which is why we are so successful. And I think that young groups should be really adventurous with their programming and with their repertoire. Of course, you have to learn the great masters. I mean, you have to learn all of the repertoire, you know, that's standard. But then, you know, go outside the box, find different ways, fresh ways of putting programs together, you know, turn them upside down, play music that nobody's heard before, you know, ask your friends to write you a piece. You know, having a premiere can get a lot of attention, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I feel like, you know, through the years, sometimes we'll get requests like, can you play an all Mozart program? Well, sure we can, but do we want to? No. You know, we pride ourselves on arranging our own music, commissioning. We already have 3 new triples coming our way, you know, in a few months. You know, tons of music written for us, and playing things like Sara, our cellist, suggested, why don't we play Baroque music? You know, why does a modern pianist play Bach on a 9-foot piano, but people go, oh no, you can't play Vivaldi with a modern piano of course you can. So one of our most successful CDs was an all Baroque CD. So I really give you a lot of credit, Sara. Cello.
You know, and just as performers, and what you can again offer to what you want to express to the young performers today. You know, when I think about what I'm missing these days about being with Eroica and performing, it's those little things like those knowing looks that we can just quickly see each other and look at each other's eyes for a second and know exactly what's going on. I mean, those are the moments that are kind of exciting and about humanity. And, you know, that does translate to the audience.
Oh, absolutely.
And they love it. And it just gives me shivers just thinking about it, you know.
And also try rehearsing with your backs to each other, so you can't see each other at all, because it's like the flip side of what you're saying. When you see the Beethoven triple performance with Diane, you'll see how we're on stage. We can't really see each other, especially me. My back is completely to the other Sarah's, and we really do everything on kind of ESP and hearing each other's breathing and sniffs.
Yeah, and also Erika is, you know, we sit like that for the Beethoven triple, so that each instrument is facing directly out to the audience, so that it's not being compromised by us having to be able to see each other. But, you know, when you really are listening really, really intensely, you can hear a change in the quality of sound that someone is doing, and that tells you exactly where they're going to go. Erika is a master at that. It's extraordinary. But I find that, you know, there's a certain logic to and a rationality to where music can move at any second.
Mhm.
And so given our knowledge of each other's personalities, when I hear that suddenly the vibrato changes in Sara Parkins' note, I suddenly know, oop, okay, button your seatbelt, we're gonna go, you know, or whatever, you know? So it's, you know, there's one thing that Hillary Clinton said in that docu-series on Netflix, which is quite brilliant. And I remember thinking exactly, I feel exactly the same way. She said, look, you have to listen to the criticism because you may be able to learn something from it, but you can never take it personally.
Mm-hmm.
And that's true because, look, I mean, every single thing that we do is in the public eye. And now with the internet, it is an incredible forum for people who want to stay anonymous but be mean. They get thrills out of it. And so, like, for me, it's like, I just let it go right over my head. I don't engage, and I'm just like, what? Nope. You know, because and if you don't like it, I mean, I remember somebody put a video of me breaking the Guinness Book of World Records for the fastest flight of the bumblebee, and you know, some guy came on and was like really trashing it, saying music is not about speed, it's not an athletic competition, it's really about beauty. And so and then other people started yelling at him. And this was all, and so I came in and said, look, that's what's great about art, is that we all can have different opinions about it. If the speed and the humor of this is not your cup of tea, there's so many other great composers that you can listen to. And I can send you to some of my links for like Oblivion or whatever, but you know, but I'm like, that's what's great about this music. And I love that you all are so passionate, but I would ask if you could be civil when you do it, you know. But you know, that's the thing, you're always going to be criticized, and sometimes it's legitimate, sometimes it's unfair, but you can't take it personally. You have to just keep saying tomorrow's a better day.
And I was thinking, again, more advice for young people as we're all like pouring it out. I think a really important skill that even now I'm working on, as Sara said, you're always growing, is learning the skill of listening. And really hearing what's coming out and hearing what's around you rather than what you think it is. I mean, I think listening skills are so important in performing. So
In humanity.
Yeah. True. You're here.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Somebody gave me as a gift at some party a coaster, and it said, chamber musicians play well together. And I was like, you know, actually playing chamber music and learning the skills that you need they're just really important life skills. To learn how to listen to someone else and take on their view as your own and put yourself in their shoes, and also to be able to take criticism from someone who you really admire, who's in your group with you, and they're criticizing something, to be able to take it without taking it personally, but listen to it intellectually and say, I disagree with this part of that, but that actually, I didn't notice that, but she's right.
Yeah, and you really have to, when you're rehearsing, I'm talking directly to the group now, when you're rehearsing, you really have to try the ideas, because sometimes a person might say verbally what they want to do, and you might go, really? No, I don't think so. You know what? Try it. Wow. You might be surprised by it. It's really good. And then you really do have to fight for your ideas. You have to have reasons behind your ideas. You can't just go, well, we sound pretty if you crescendo here. Or,
I just want to want to do it that way. Oh yeah, well, I want to have $1 billion, but I don't. Okay.
Yeah. So I think these are some wonderful life lessons about working together, building a team, listening, and these can be applied not just to a chamber music group, but to really anything you do out there in life.
Yes.
And I think what you're saying about the perseverance is very important, that, you know, yes, we are going to have criticism, whatever you do in your career or in your life, but to learn from it, to not let it get you down, to kind of say, okay, this is another challenge for me, and to really go after those challenges.
Yeah.
So I want to thank all of you for sharing all this with us today. It's been really, really wonderful.
Sure.
And you're welcome.
I think people will hear and see when they watch the video of you performing on stage, they're going to be able to see that interaction that
Yeah.
we've talked about today.
Definitely, definitely.
And how
I have one
really work
other
together.
thing there was just one other thing I wanted to say that I have thought often, and I talk to students about this all the time, that I think is really powerful and very simple, which is just listen to how you frame the questions and you frame what's going on in your life. Instead of calling it, like I try to do this all the time, and it's so powerful. Instead of saying, you know, oh, I've hit a roadblock, or oh, I have this problem, or oh, I have this challenge, I say, I have this opportunity.
Yeah. Pick your words carefully.
Yeah, pick your words carefully, because that, how you think on a daily basis, when you think about that, you realize you're saying it over and over and over and over and over. So why not say it in a really positive, proactive way over and over and over? Because that will start to frame it in a way of optimism, of possibility. I have an opportunity here. This is giving me an opportunity. And when we had so many doors slammed in our faces, we thought of it as an opportunity to prove that we were every bit as good as the men, and that this was ridiculous, and that we weren't going to take no for an answer. So there,
girl power.
That's fantastic. Yeah, that's really, really wonderful. Well, I want to thank all of you for being on the call with me today.
Thank you.
And we're hoping that some point to have you back here in Allentown. Maybe we'll do one of those new pieces that you're commissioning.
Fine, that'd be great.
Yeah, it'd be really, really wonderful. So I want to thank you again, and we encourage everyone to tune in to the broadcast. On the broadcast, you'll be hearing the Doug Ovens Bertoia piece, Visible Music for Bertoia Statues and
Beautiful
Orchestra, and then also the Beethoven Triple with the Eroica Trio. So thank you very much, and enjoy.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.